Turin, Italy, January 3rd, 1889. A frantic, disheveled man with a thick, unkempt moustache bursts out of a doorway and throws his arms around the neck of a carriage horse that is being mercilessly beaten by its driver. He collapses into the cobblestones, weeping uncontrollably, his mind shattering into a million jagged fragments of madness from which he would never recover. That man was Friedrich Nietzsche, the most dangerous philosopher who ever lived, and for the last decade of his conscious life, he had been trying to warn us about a specific, terrifying reality that civilized society tries desperately to bury. While the world remembers him for declaring that God is dead, they conveniently forget what he said would replace God. They forget his most piercing, uncomfortable dissections of the dynamic between the sexes, observations so sharp they feel less like philosophy and more like an autopsy of the human heart. What if I told you that his final descent wasn't just madness, but the inevitable result of staring too long, too deeply, and too honestly into the abyss of human nature without blinking? We are going to open the pages that society nailed shut. We are going to look at what Nietzsche actually observed about the feminine spirit, not the politeness we are taught in school or the sanitized equality we pretend exists in the boardroom, but the primal, ancient, biological software that is running in the background of every interaction you have ever had with a woman. You need to understand that when Nietzsche spoke of women, he wasn't speaking of them as a political category or a social construct. He was speaking of them as the physical embodiment of nature itself. And nature, as Nietzsche constantly reminded us, is not kind. Nature is not fair. Nature is a brutal, discerning, aristocratic force that cares for one thing and one thing only: the elevation of the species through the selection of the strong and the merciless elimination of the weak. This is the first brutal truth that you must swallow before we can go any further. The truth that explains every heartbreak, every ghosting, and every cold shoulder you have ever experienced. Nietzsche observed that the feminine nature is fundamentally, biologically, and inescapably repulsed by weakness. This is not a moral failing on their part, it is a biological necessity. Think about the last time you were vulnerable, truly vulnerable, in a way that showed a lack of capacity, a lack of direction, or a lack of power. You were taught that opening up, crying, showing your wounds would bring you closer to the feminine heart, that it would elicit sympathy and unconditional love. And perhaps, for a moment, it elicited pity. But Nietzsche knew the difference between pity and desire, and he knew that they are mutually exclusive. You cannot desire what you pity, and you cannot respect what you must constantly save. When you demonstrate weakness, when you complain about the world, when you play the victim, when you seek validation rather than commanding your own space, you are not just being annoying, you are triggering a deep, evolutionary alarm bell in the female psyche that screams, danger. You represent a genetic dead end. You represent the failure of life to overcome obstacles. Nietzsche famously wrote that man is a rope, tied between beast and superman, a rope over an abyss. In this metaphor, woman is the judge watching you walk that rope. If you falter, if you shake, if you look down in terror, she does not want to catch you. Her instinct, the instinct entrusted to her by millions of years of evolution, is to cut the rope. This sounds harsh, it sounds evil, but strip away your modern sentimentalism and look at the reality of history. The woman who attached herself to the weak man, the man who could not contend with reality, the man who needed a mother rather than a partner, that woman and her children perished. We are the descendants of the women who were ruthless in their selection. This is why your nice guy routine fails. This is why your sacrifices go unnoticed. This is why, when you lay your heart on the table and say, "I will do anything for you," she looks at you with that vague, unplaceable look of disappointment. You think you are offering love, but Nietzsche would say you are offering servitude, and servitude is the lowest form of life. By making her the center of your world, by needing her to validate your existence, you are inverting the natural order. You are placing the burden of your purpose onto her shoulders. You are asking her to be the leader, the judge, and the source of your strength. And while she may accept that role temporarily out of boredom or necessity, she will despise you for it. Deep down, in the reptilian shadow of her mind, she is waiting for the man who does not need her, the man who is possessed by a mission greater than her, the man who is dangerous enough to survive the abyss without her holding his hand. Nietzsche warned us about the tarantulas of society, those who preach equality and fairness as a way to drag the strong down to the level of the weak. In relationships, this manifests as the lie that love should be a 50-50 partnership of mutual vulnerability. It is a beautiful lie, a comforting sedative. But look at who women are actually drawn to. Look at the Übermensch archetypes in their literature, their fantasies, their choices. They desire the man who has mastered himself, who has organized the chaos within him. The feminine nature is chaos. It is the swirling, creative, destructive force of life. It does not want more chaos. It craves order. It craves a structure that is solid enough to withstand its storms. When you crumble, when you buckle under pressure, you are proving that you are not the structure. You are just more debris in the storm. You must realize that this assessment is not an insult to women. In fact, Nietzsche revered this aspect of nature as the ultimate driver of human excellence. Without this ruthless filter, without this demand for strength, men would have remained content in the mud. It is the terrifying judging gaze of the feminine that forces man to build civilizations, to conquer nations, to write symphonies, and to overcome himself. She is the gatekeeper of the future. If she lets you pass, your line continues. If she blocks the gate, you are erased from history. That is a power that dwarfs kings and emperors. And so, the first step in waking up from your slumber is to stop hating the game and understand the rules. She is not testing you because she is cruel. She is testing you because she is the mechanism nature uses to ask the only question that matters. Are you strong enough to belong to the future? If the answer is no, no amount of poetry or pleading will save you. If you have ever stood on the shore and watched a magnificent ship sailing past on the horizon, its white sails billowing in the wind, cutting through the water with a silent, ghostly grace, you have experienced exactly what Nietzsche described as the fundamental mechanism of feminine power. He called it actio in distans, action at a distance, and it is perhaps the most painful psychological trap that the male mind falls into over and over again with the predictability of a ticking clock. From the shore, the ship looks like a divine entity, a promise of adventure, a vessel of silence and perfect motion that seems to float above the messy reality of the waves. But Nietzsche, with his ruthless commitment to breaking our hearts for our own good, grabs us by the collar and forces us to swim out to that ship, to climb aboard and to see what is actually happening on deck. And what do we find when the distance is closed? We find noise, we find chaos, we find the creaking of wood, the smell of tar, the frantic shouting of sailors, and the gross machinery required to keep the illusion gliding so smoothly. This is the tragedy of the male romantic spirit. You fall in love with the silence and the image on the horizon, but you insist on climbing aboard, and in doing so, you destroy the very magic that captivated you in the first place. Nietzsche observed that the feminine nature operates entirely in the realm of appearance, of shine, and before you dismiss this as superficiality, you must understand that for Nietzsche, appearance was often higher than truth, because appearance is what allows life to continue. Truth is often deadly, ugly, and unbearable. And so the woman becomes the master of the mask, the weaver of the veil, the creature who instinctively knows that if you saw everything exactly as it is, if the mystery were fully illuminated by the harsh light of your logic, the desire would evaporate instantly. You think you want total honesty, you think you want to see her soul, naked and unadorned, but you are lying to yourself. What you actually want is the continued illusion that there is something divine, something otherworldly, something redemptive hiding behind her eyes, and she knows that her power lies in never letting you fully verify if that treasure is real or if the vault is empty. Consider the terrifying thought that Nietzsche whispered in his later works. What if the truth is a woman? What then? He meant that truth itself is not a solid, immutable rock that you can put in your pocket, but a shifting, dancing, elusive force that yields only to those who know how to play the game, not those who demand rigid answers. When you approach a woman with your heavy, clumsy tools of logic, demanding that she make sense, demanding that she be consistent, demanding that she adhere to a linear narrative of who she is and what she wants, you are committing a crime against her nature. She is not a mathematical equation to be solved. She is a labyrinth designed to be experienced. Nietzsche warned that women are inherently actors, not in a malicious sense, but in a way that is fundamental to their survival and their dominance. They try on emotions like costumes. They inhabit different personas to see which one grants them the most power in a given situation. And the man who tries to pin them down to one single identity is like a child trying to nail a shadow to the wall. This is where your frustration is born, isn't it? You feel betrayed when she changes, when the promises of yesterday are dissolved by the moods of today. But Nietzsche would laugh at your naivety. He would tell you that she was never that person to begin with. She was reflecting your desire back at you. She was becoming the mirror you needed at that moment, and now the light has shifted and the reflection has changed. The mistake was yours for believing the reflection was the statue. You see, the mask is not something she wears to hide her true self. In a deeply disturbing way, the mask is the self. Nietzsche suggested that if you were to peel away the layers of an onion looking for the core, you would eventually find that there is no core, only layer upon layer of beautiful, stinging skin. And this terrified him, just as it terrifies you. It implies that at the center of the feminine mystique is a void, a vacuum that demands to be filled by a man's will, a man's purpose, and a man's structure. When you stop trying to find the truth beneath the surface and start respecting the power of the surface itself, you finally begin to see her clearly. She decorates herself, she adorns herself, she manipulates her appearance and her environment because she understands something that men, with their obsession with reality, often miss, that life is a performance. If you stop the performance, the theater goes dark, and in the dark, we are all just frightened animals. She is the stage director of the human race, keeping the lights on, keeping the costumes bright, keeping the drama high so that we do not look at the meaningless void that surrounds us. Nietzsche revered this capacity. He called it the Dionysian energy, the chaotic, life-affirming, intoxicated embrace of the moment. But he also knew it was dangerous. The danger arises when you, the man, become the audience rather than the protagonist. If you sit back and watch her play, if you become captivated by her shifting forms, you lose your own center of gravity. You begin to orbit her chaos rather than providing the solar gravity that holds the system together. Nietzsche's brutal insight here is that she does not want an audience member. She wants a critic, a master, someone who sees the play, enjoys the play, but ultimately knows it is just a play. The moment you believe the illusion completely, the moment you think her temporary emotion is a permanent edict, you have handed over your sanity. You must maintain the pathos of distance. You must love the ship from the shore, or if you board it, you must be the captain who steers it through the storm, not the passenger who gets seasick when the waves get rough. She craves the man who can enjoy the mask without being fooled by it, the man who can look into the abyss of her shifting nature and smile because he knows that he is the rock that does not move. Have you ever watched a cat play with a mouse? It is a mesmerizing dance of calculated cruelty and feigned indifference. The cat does not kill immediately. It allows the mouse to run. It allows the mouse a fleeting, intoxicating hope of escape, only to bring the paw down again, closer, harder. Nietzsche, observing the parlor rooms of 19th century Europe, watching the rigid etiquette and the soft whispers of courtship, saw the exact same dynamic hiding in plain sight. He realized that what we call romance is often just a sophisticated gloss over a war for dominance, a war where the weapons are not swords or guns, but tears, silence, guilt, and the terrifying weaponization of frailty. You have been sold a fairy tale that tells you love is a sanctuary, a place of rest where you can lay down your armor. Nietzsche is here to grab you by the shoulders and scream that love is not a sanctuary. It is the most dangerous battlefield you will ever step onto, and the moment you lay down your armor is the moment you have lost the war. The most profound and unsettling insight Nietzsche offered on this front is the idea that the feminine will to power operates in reverse to the masculine. The man asserts his power through strength, through competence, through the undeniable force of his presence. He says, "I am here, deal with me." But the woman? She asserts her power through a strategic, weaponized weakness. Nietzsche warned that there is a tyranny of the weak that is far more effective than any tyranny of the strong because it bypasses your defenses. When a man challenges you, your adrenaline spikes, your guard goes up, and you prepare for conflict. But when a woman presents herself as the damsel, as the wounded bird, as the creature who simply needs you, your biological defenses deactivate. You do not see an enemy, you see a responsibility, and that is exactly how the shackle is snapped onto your wrist. You think you are the master because you are the one providing, the one protecting, the one solving the problems. But ask yourself, who is serving whom? If your entire life is reoriented to serve her needs, to soothe her anxieties, to maintain her comfort, then you are not the master. You are the highest paid servant in the house. Nietzsche saw this inversion of power as the great comedy of the sexes. The man struts around thinking he is the conqueror because he has won the woman, never realizing that he was the target all along, that he was selected, vetted, and captured because he had the resources and the vitality she required. The submission you find so intoxicating in the beginning, it is often just a strategy of containment. She submits to your lead only as long as you lead her exactly where she wants to go. The moment you deviate, the moment your leadership threatens her security or her biological imperative, the submission evaporates, replaced by a resistance so subtle and so stubborn it can erode mountains. This leads us to the dark heart of Nietzsche's observation about possession. He argued that women do not love men, they love the possession of men, but they do not want to possess your body. That is cheap, that is easy. They want to possess your soul, your attention, your future. Have you ever noticed how a woman will become jealous not of other women, but of your mission, of your hobbies, of your solitude, of anything that takes your gaze away from her? Nietzsche likened this to a form of spiritual vampirism. She knows instinctively that your creative energy, the fire that drives you to build and conquer, is the most valuable resource on the planet. She is drawn to that fire, she warms her hands by it, but deep down, there is a terrified part of her that wants to contain it, to domesticate it, to ensure that the fire warms the house rather than burning down the village. She wants you to be a monster, but a monster on a leash. This is the tragedy of the creative man that Nietzsche mourned so deeply. He saw countless great men, artists, generals, philosophers, who were burned out, hollowed out, and reduced to mediocrity by the women they loved, not because those women were evil, but because they were relentless in their demand for the man's soul. They chipped away at his solitude, they filled his silence with domestic noise, they dragged him down from the cold heights of his ambition into the warm, sticky mud of comfort. And the man let it happen. He let it happen because he craved the warmth more than he feared the death of his greatness. Nietzsche demands that you look this reality in the face. A woman often does not want you to achieve the impossible. She wants you to achieve the respectable. She wants safety. She wants the provider. And if your destiny requires you to risk that safety, to be dangerous, to be misunderstood, she will unconsciously sabotage you to keep you close. You must understand that in the Nietzschean framework, this is not a call to misogyny. It is a call to vigilance. It is a warning that the peace you feel in a relationship is often an illusion. It is simply the quiet phase of the siege. If you are not constantly asserting your own will to power, if you are not constantly redrawing the boundaries of your identity and guarding your solitude with the ferocity of a dragon guarding gold, you will be dissolved. You will become an accessory to her life, a character in her story, rather than the author of your own. The question is not whether she loves you. The question is, does her love fuel your ascent to the Superman, or is it the gravity that pulls you back down to the herd? Nietzsche tells us that for the vast majority of men, it is the gravity. And breaking free of that gravity requires a hardness of heart that most men simply do not possess. And finally, we arrive at the heaviest weight of all, the ultimate test of your spirit, the eternal recurrence. Nietzsche asks you to imagine that a demon creeps into your loneliness one night and says, "This life, as you live it now and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unutterably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence." Now, apply this to your relationships. Look at the woman next to you. Look at the dynamic you have created. Look at the arguments, the sex, the silence, the power struggles. If you had to live this exact relationship over and over again for all of eternity, would you scream in horror, or would you fall down and bless the demon? If the answer is horror, then you are living a lie. You are wasting your time on a connection that drains your vitality and insults your future. Nietzsche commands you to have the courage to walk away, to sever the limb to save the body. But if you can say yes, if you can say, "I would suffer this chaos, this pain, and this beauty 1,000,000 times over because it pushed me to become who I am," then you have won. You have transmuted the lead of suffering into the gold of fate. You have achieved amor fati, the love of your fate. So do not leave this narration thinking that Nietzsche hated women. He feared them, yes. He respected them, absolutely. But more than anything, he saw them as the gatekeepers of reality. They are the biological storm that strips away the weak and selects the strong. The only question left, the question that will echo in your mind long after this voice fades, is simple. When the storm hits, when the test comes, when the illusion drops and you are staring into the abyss of her nature, will you be the debris that is washed away, or will you be the rock that remains? The choice is not hers. It never was. It is yours. Rise.